How's it going, everybody? I'm Josh from Elder Drunken Highlander, and I'm coming to you with a deck check video for swamps are a key habitat for the preservation of our water systems, and in this essay I plan to... It's a swamp deck. This deck is trying to put a bunch of swamps into play, make a big fat squelching leeches, Korlash, and beat people to death. That's his main game plan. I played a few games with this deck on our Discord server, actually, and I really like it, and it was very fun for the people playing against it, too. The games were really close, really swingy, and really great. I only won one of them. But you know, that's how they go in Commander. It was a really fun time playing it, so I figured I'd do a deck tech on it ASAP. So if you are one of the people who played against it in the Discord, shout outs for getting this one put the front of the queue for deck techs. It's big. It's a long queue. It's a long queue. All we're trying to do here is amass a lot of swamps for Korlash the Blackblade. There are some other crazy things we can do with the deck that are kinda combo-ish, but it's mostly just a value town beatdown swamp deck, and it's just really satisfying to play. We have stuff like Liliana of the Dark Realms to get us more swamps, and then we have an artifact suite to ramp 2. We have Expedition Map, we have Wayfarer's Bauble, we have this thing, which is like, you know, Flavor Win right there. The classic landfall pieces, some spicy stuff like Staff of the Death Magus, which I actually probably should cut, and then just like basically every single like swamp power card that we could find, Nightmare Lash, that kind of stuff. Cage Sun to double our swamps, and then this thing, which we'll talk about later. So we have not a ton of ramp, actually. We mostly just rely on drawing into our lands naturally because we have a lot of them, 43 including MDFCs. The inspiration for this deck actually was this card right here, the Black Sylvan Scrying. It's an inside joke that Austin and I have, that when you cast Demonic Tutor you say, oh, the Black Sylvan Scrying, and you like heavily imply that the person is searching for land, and then we were like, what if you actually did that? And so in this deck you're shooting for Urborg or Cabal Coffers like every single time, and yeah, or sometimes Field of the Dead. There's some other good lands to tutor for as well, but like I've tutored for a fetch land before. I once tutored for a Mutilate. That was embarrassing. It wasn't a Sylvan Scrying. But yeah, that's what you're doing, is you're just getting good lands and putting them into play, doing land stuff. Other than that, you have a big giant fatty McFatterson in your command zone. Look at him, he's huge, because you know you're gonna have like 18 swamps, and you're trying to capitalize off of that. So you have things like Disciple of Bolas to sacrifice your commander and get you some extra life, and you also have Shadowheart Dark Justicar to get you some draw. You have things like Ruthless Technomancer, sacrifice your commander, get you some mana. You have stuff like, where is he? Butchmeat Poacher, which draws you a card and gets you life. A lot of stuff in the 4 CMC slot to deal with our commander. We can like play a card like this, play our commander, sack him, and that's totally okay because we're running a ton of ways to return our commander to our hand every single turn, or to the battlefield even, with something like Strands of Night. We have just like a ton of ways to bring the commander back to the hand. The reason for that too, besides just sacrificing him, is because it also synergizes with this Helm of the Host that I glossed over earlier. The Helm of the Host allows us to copy our commander, which means we can actually return the original commander to our hand, use like sacrificing him and returning him to hand, and then use the Grandeur ability, which is kind of spicy. I don't think it's that good. It's really not built around that. I think in addition to just Helm of the Host making the Grandeur thing like go live, having clones of the vast majority of our creature package, which I'll get into next, is really good, and having clones of our commander because he's massive is really good, and we have the mana to pay for the Helm of the Host. We're making a lot of mana. We're doing mono black mana doubling things. We have stuff like Bubbling Muck on top of the Cage Sun, on top of the Crypt Gas, on top of the Nirkana Revenant. We also have Grim Tutor as another tutor, but other than that, we don't have that many other tutors. And you can see here all these return to hand spells. There's our 2 board wipes, and then some swamp stuff. Golden Demise is part of a combo. I'll get to that later in a second. I mean, you might have already figured it out because you've seen... Actually, no, we'll talk about it now. I was showing you all the pieces. So Golden Demise makes all your opponent's creatures get -2 to -2, and not yours. And the reason that you want to do that is because you want to have Kormus Spell and Urborg on the board, giving all lands swamps, and then making all swamps 1/1s, and then giving all your opponents 1/1s, -2, and then making it so they don't have any lands, and you have all the lands. And that's pretty hilarious. That's kind of like your finisher. You don't want to do that until you have the biggest creatures on the board, which you should be doing once you have like your Nightmare and your Korlash and your other big fat fatties that you're going to have, and they're going to stick around because you're returning them to your hand and recasting them every single turn if they get destroyed. So eventually in the late game, hopefully you just get there, you blow out your opponent's lands, and then you can just start to beat them to death with your creatures over the next like 2 turns and just win the game, because you're gonna have a bunch of, like, I am not exaggerating when I say 18/18s. You're gonna have like Korlash with 9 swamps and Blackblade, or the Lash Wraith, or the Nightmare Lash, or maybe more than one of these things equipped, and you're just gonna be slapping people. You can also do this really dank combo with Filth. Some dank Filth. Yeah, that was wordplay, baby. Filth plus Urborg means that your creatures are just unblockable, which is sick as fuck. I really like this this fucking old school classic banger. I got beat by this in Commander in 2011, so that's pretty sick. The creature package, other than that, is pretty standard for mono black with a lands matter theme, or like a green black deck without the green. Basically, you have Bloodghast and worse Bloodghast. Things like Walking Atlas, Burnished Heart, Landfall Staples, the 4 CMC bangers that I talked about later. This card is another reason that the deck exists. Dread Presence just is... Being able to doink a creature for 2 and gain 2 life every time you play a land is insane. It's awesome. We have so many incidental life gain effects in this deck. So normally against a mono black deck, the strategy is to just, you know, pressure their life totals so that they can't use it as a resource. But we don't really use our life total as a resource in this deck, because that's not really something that swamps do that much. But swamps do gain a lot of life. So we just have a lot of life all the time, and it's pretty sweet. So that's a nice little upside to this deck, is we don't spend it, we just have a ton of life. So we can take bonks, but people often don't swing on us either because our creatures are massive. Scare Tiller is another land thing. He's like a worse Crucible of Worlds. We have this Solemn. Well, that's not true. He also puts things into play from our hand, which is kind of spicy when we've drawn like 18 cards off of sacrificing our commander or something with like a Nightmare Lash on it. Solemn's classic. This guy's classic. Just a bunch of great mono black stuff. I want to talk about Ob Nixilis for a second, because this guy is absolutely cracked out of his mind. 3 damage to somebody plus 3 counters every time you play a land. What the heck? Like fetch lands and other crazy stuff. I have like Strands of Night in the deck. I killed Kevin literally last night with this deck by playing Burnished Heart and Strands of Night, and having Cabal Coffers and Urborg and a ton of swamps, and just repeatedly sacrificing Burnished Heart, returning it with Strands of Night with Ob Nixilis on the field to burn him out on life. Because I was able to just put it back into play every time I sacrificed it, get 2 swamps, deal 6 damage to Kevin, and then do it again. It was awesome. And that's how I won the game. I finished him like that. So I'm pretty proud of that one. This guy is really great for buffing our creatures even more in case we wanted them to be even more gigantic. Massacre Worm is another way to get rid of all your opponent's lands if you turn them into things with Kormus Bell. And this one's really good because you usually win when you do this. It's just an instant kill. This is, you know, this is the card you want to be casting. I will tutor for Nightmare if I can. This card's amazing, and it's just a big giant flying swamp beater, and you can put all your equipment on it and one-shot somebody, and it's really, really cool. And then lastly, we got, you know, mana doublers. And this is such a simple deck. There's some cool stuff in the land, some sack outlets built in, some discard outlets built in. Leech-ridden swamp you can tutor for to get your Field the Dead count up. This is the kind of spice that we put in almost every deck of ours. This is why all our decks are so expensive, because we trick out the land base every time with absurd stuff. You can run this deck with 40 swamps and Urborg, and it would be just as good. It would be dandy, honestly. And which this card's nasty too. You probably want to run Rich's Cottage. It's like 79 cents. But yeah, I like this deck a lot too, because it is so easy to budget out. Normally I'm like proxy it for sure. I do have this deck proxied. I don't actually own it in paper, and I don't intend on ever buying it in paper. I actually have all these cards, but I'm not gonna assemble it. It's just not worth it. I have it. It's fine. No one I actually play against cares that I use proxies of these like $600 garbage jank decks. You can cut a lot of the more expensive cards and just replace them with other mono black good stuff, or like worse tutors or more tutors. Yeah, you really don't need Cryptghast, for example. You really don't need Demonic Tutor, even though it is the reason the deck exists. The Black Sylvan Scrying, you really don't need this card. You can cut it for any tutor is fine, and it's same for Grim Tutor. You don't need this card. It can be Diabolic Tutor, it can be Diabolic Intent, and you can sacrifice your commander and put it back into your hand and use Grander. There's so many other things you can do, and most of these slots are very, very cuttable. You'll know which slots are not cuttable, and they're like 25-cent cards like Corrupt. So, and like, you don't need the fetch lands. They're nice, but you really don't need them because, you know, you're playing swamps, not fetch lands. I actually don't crack my fetch lands a ton in the game. They're mostly to get like well-timed landfall triggers, but they're usually going to be swamped with the Urborg or with the Strands of Night, or not the Strands of Night, the Blanket of Night. The They're usually going to be swamps with the Urborg or the Blanket with Night anyway, so it's not really a big thing. You don't need the fetches. Put like Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse in there and call it a day. Like this is such a nice deck to budget. And if you budget out the land base, you don't need Cabal Coffers. You can use Cabal Stronghold. So I think this is a really fun deck. I think this is a really easy deck to build. You don't need this card. That's $11. You don't need it. This card is why is this card? Oh yeah. This is Phyrexian. Yeah. You don't need this card either. Like you don't need any of these. This is just gravy. I've never once gotten to the 7 land count with it. I've never really gone for it. I just get the basic swamps into play. I don't look for the other lands, but like you don't need any of this stuff in the deck, honestly. You can just get the cheap stuff. Oh, you need this. This is core. Not allowed to cut it. I know it's very expensive. Anyways, I'm doing the thing where I'm rambling. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment so I know that you liked it. Like the video so that I know you liked it. And check us out on our Discord. We brew decks and play decks like this all the time. We're trying to get the LFG chat in our Discord going. There's people who want to play at like all these hours of the day, and I'm only available in like a few of them. So what are you doing? Get on our Discord, play some Magic. You could play against decks like this. There's a lot of people on our Discord brewing some wild, weird stuff. We also have a Twitter you can follow if you want to see my lukewarm takes. Oh, and also we have a Patreon. You can throw money at us if you want your name to scroll on by in the credits at the end of the video or what have you. That's it. Hope you enjoyed this one. I really did. This deck slaps. Yeah, stay janky, my friends. Stay swampy, my friends.